We all aware that Nigeria, every day, government officials in Nigeria are either looking for vehicles to buy, looking for offices to rent. In fact, there are a lot of government ministries that are renting offices. And then it's a shame that we have assets that we recover that are wasting away while people are going around expending public funds on recordings that could be avoided. So this policy is one of the ways we're looking for ways to actually identify gaps in the recovered assets management process. So identify ways of actually looking at converting proceeds of crime into assets for the government of Nigeria. So we're here to work together and I believe that with this policy we can all put in place the proper legislative and administrative procedure to strengthen our fight against corruption. So thank you. What we would do first is do an introduction of members of the committee. Then we'll, move to your side of the table.
My name is Malami, the Attorney General of the Minister of Justice. And with me, the Chairman and the honorable members, the Permanent Secretary and the State General of the Minister of Justice, in the person of Learned Senior Advocate Dayo Apata. And we are in this meeting supported by some technical staff of the Asset Recovery and Management Unit, inclusive of Ajia Ladidi Bara'atu Mohammed and Bunmi Naijo with us for the purpose of these proceedings, and we thank you most sincerely for according us an opportunity to be physically and personally present. We thank you most sincerely for the honor. Thank you.
Take us through the status of recovered assets and the cost management of state, forfeited assets. How is it done?
Well, I think there are multiple dimensions to it. It all depends on which of the dimensions you want me to address, and I'm ready to address the multiple dimensions. Some of the dimensions that are associated with it are the international recoveries. Another dimension is the local recovery aspect of it. The other dimension equally is the legislative aspect of it. Where are we as far as the support for the recovery and disposal of assets are? And indeed the executive dimension. What have we done in terms of recovery, disposal, and tracing of assets? So it all depends on which of the areas perhaps the committee is interested in me, and I am equally ready to take them one after the other if it is the desire of the committee that I should do justice to all of the enumerated, multiple dimensions enumerated.
Okay, the mandate of the committee. You're looking at not just from 2015, today we're looking at recoveries even down to Abacha era. How much has been recovered cash? How much has been appropriated? How much has been utilized? Do we still have anything left? Are we still making recoveries? And then what happens to all the immovable assets? What's happened to them? I think we can start from there.
To my tenure in office 2015 to date, with particular regard to the recovered assets, taking into consideration that the 2002, which is an area indeed being considered by the committee, and up to the point of 2015, I was not in office, and I may not be in a sound position to give a comprehensive rundown as to that area. But one thing that I think is important before coming down to figures is the fact that at the time we came into office, we realized that there was no coordinated, organized way and manner through which recovered assets were being coordinated in terms of disposal and associated things. So what we did was indeed to put in place a legal framework, to consider the possibility of having a legal framework, and developed a proceeds of crime bill, which was transmitted by the executive to the National Assembly as far back as 2017. Embedded in the process of crime bill was the Asset Management and Recovery Agency. And I regret to state that as far back as 2017 to 2019, up to the present moment, that legislative framework could not be achieved on account of the fact that the asset recovery proceeds of crime bill was not passed by the National Assembly. As I'm talking to you, it has been a work in progress. So my take on it is, if indeed the National Assembly had passed the proceeds of crime bill, we cannot be here scampering and indeed perhaps scouting for information relating to the recovered assets, because that bill has indeed put in place an effective mechanism, both in terms of database, in terms of disposal, processes, and procedure. So the starting point is to state that there has been inaction on the part of the National Assembly with particular regards to having in place a coordinated legal framework on assets, tracing, disposal, and management. Now, coming to the recovered assets. Let me state that at the national level, in terms of recovery, notwithstanding the absence of the Proceeds of Crime Act, or perhaps the passage of the Proceeds of Crime Bill, we have tried to record some modest achievements in terms of our international engagement as far as recoveries are concerned. In that respect, we have succeeded in December 2017 to recover 322 million US dollars from Swiss. That asset recovered is known as Abacha 2. Again, in 2020, precisely in May 2020, we have succeeded in recovering 311,797,866.11 cents from Island of Jersey, United States of America, and indeed UK. And we have equally, in October 2020, recovered 5,494,743.71 euro from Republic of Northern Ireland in Nigeria, known as Abacha 4. And of recent, we have succeeded in May 2021 in recovering the sum of 4,214,017,000 pounds from UK, known as Ibori loot. And all these assets, as recovered, are indeed lodged with the central bank account on asset recovery, and the receipt of the amount has been confirmed by the central bank. But let me state that recovered asset has indeed constituted an item, budgetary item, that has been appropriated by the National Assembly, and among the monies or perhaps assets expected to fund the national budget of the federal government has, as a matter of policy, been made part of the budgetary arrangement of the federal government, and it was indeed among the expected items appropriated by through the appropriation by the National Assembly. So the implication of what I'm laboring to state is that these recovered assets and much more that were being recovered locally constituted a budget line item. And these monies, upon recovery and lodgement with the central bank account on asset recovery, are eventually transmitted to consolidated revenue fund for utilization by the federal government in servicing the budget demands of the federal government. Of course, let me state further that on account of the fact that Nigeria as a sovereign nation is not exclusively involved where international recoveries are concerned, it calls for mutual negotiations and determination. For example, when we were negotiating the 322 million US dollars originally recovered in December 2017, arising from the fact that we were governed not exclusively by the Nigerian law, but by international convention relating to international recovery, taking into consideration that Switzerland, as a sovereign nation, was involved, and negotiations were necessary. We had to sit down, discuss, agree, and negotiate with Swiss, governed by international conventions, our local laws, their local laws, among others, to agree on an arrangement that has to do with the disposal, or perhaps with the disposal of the assets in contention. And we agreed on social investment programs, among others. Now, which social investment programs are we talking about? The Empower program, Trader Money program, unassociated school feeding program, unassociated incidental programs of the federal government relating to support for the less privileged and indeed the indigent and disabled. It was commonly agreed among these nations that these monies should be extended in that respect, and the money was indeed accordingly applied. Now, coming to the second tranche, which was 311 million US dollars recovered from island of Jersey, United States of America, and UK, we equally negotiated on the projects in respect of which these monies were to be applied, and arising from the international negotiations among sovereign nations guided by the international conventions relating to the asset recoveries. It was agreed that these funds be applied on 3 major Nigerian projects, that is Abuja-Kano Expressway, which I am happy to state that is progressing modestly in terms of infrastructural development, Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, which is as well been aggressively pursued, and indeed Second Niger Bridge. All these were budgetary items, and there was budgetary provision for them. And then indeed, the budget item relating to this project was there in the budget and appropriated by the National Assembly. So these funds were agreed to be applied exclusively for this project, and I'm happy to report that this is what is being transparently and accountably done by the federal government in terms of application. Again, we have equally recovered from Republic of Northern Ireland the sum of €5 million on 2nd October 2020, which amount was equally remitted to the Consolidated Revenue Fund. So by and large, as far as the government of President Muhammadu Buhari is concerned, recovered assets are substantially products of international agreement, international agreement and understanding, and on the basis of that understanding as agreed, the recovered assets are factored as a budgetary item in our national budget, passed by the National Assembly. So what I'm saying in essence is indeed a tripartite cycle of the executive, the legislature, and international negotiations as far as the internationally recovered assets are concerned. So the executive factor the recoveries as a budgetary item in the budget. The legislature force it on as a budgetary item, approve it, and indeed the executive deployed same as agreed in the budget, and the international community is carried along in terms of the project that needs to be, for which the funds need to be applied, and we have been wholeheartedly operating within that cycle as far as for the purpose of sustenance of transparency and accountability. Now, coming to the local recoveries, for example, there has been local recoveries of looted assets. And, but then, as you rightly know, Nigeria as a nation has a lot of institutions that have been in existence arising from the existing legislations, inclusive of, for example, the Federal Ministry of Justice, EFCC, ICPC, NGLEA, Customs, and a host of other agencies that are established by law. And part of the functions of these agencies are recoveries, among others. So over time, there has not been a coordinated and organized way of recovery, tracing, recovery, and disposal of these assets. So when we came in as a government, President Muhammadu Buhari came up with a policy of ensuring transparency of these processes. And arising from that, the President directed the opening of special accounts, among which are CBN, Office of the Accountant General of the Federation, Federal Government of Nigeria Asset Recovery USD account, whereby all recoveries in US dollars are lodged. CBN, Office of the Accountant General of the Federation, Federal Government of Nigeria Asset Recovery GBP, that is a pounds account, was established. Asset Recovery Euro account was established. Asset Recovery Naira account was established out of desire to have some level of transparency and accountability as to what we do in terms of recovery. And these accounts, the details of which were made available to you, were indeed in place by the federal government, inclusive of interim forfeiture and final forfeiture accounts. So whenever there exists an interim order of forfeited assets by the judiciary through judicial process, the amounts recovered through the interim forfeiture are lodged into the interim forfeiture account. Amounts recovered as a result of final forfeiture are lodged into the final forfeiture account. And the recovery accounts in dollar, euro, pound sterling, among others, were established, and these monies are lodged there for the purpose of transparency. So when eventually you have a final forfeiture or perhaps final lodgement of assets that are legitimately due to the federal government, the Ministry of Finance direct transmission of such assets into the consolidated revenue account for the purpose of expenditure of the federal government. So what I'm trying to say in essence, that there exist specified and dedicated accounts relating to each and every currency component by the federal government, and those accounts host the recoveries made by the federal government. Final forfeiture amount goes to the final forfeiture account, and then from there, the Federal Ministry of Finance direct the transmission of them into the consolidated revenue account. Interim forfeiture are lodged into the interim forfeiture account with the central bank, pending the final determination of the judicial process relating to the forfeiture. When eventually the case is determined, and then the court directs the final forfeiture, it goes to consolidated revenue. If it eventually directs that the amount should be paid back to the subject of investigation, it is paid back to the owner. So in essence, we have significantly, under the leadership of President Muhammadu Buhari, tried to bring about the desired transparency and accountability of the recovered assets and relevant accounts are indeed established. So, but then, for the purpose of ensuring now the disposal of the asset, the tracing, recovery, and disposal of the assets, I have told you earlier that the relevant bill that could have brought about the desired transparency, the desired consistency, organization, and coordination of the assets is still pending before the National Assembly and has not been paid. But then, out of desire to ensure the desired accountability on the part of the executive, we have what is, established in the Office of the Attorney General Asset Recovery and Management Unit, sanctioned by the head of service and established on that account. And a database has indeed been established that captures the desired information relating thereto. But one thing that I think is of interest as far as the management of assets, or perhaps the Asset Recovery and Management Unit in the Office of the Attorney General is concerned, is the fact that arising from the powers of the Attorney General within the context of the law, with particular regard to Section 150 and indeed Section 174 of the Constitution, and indeed enabling laws inclusive of the EFCC, yes, and indeed enabling law inclusive of the EFCC Act, among others, the Attorney General is empowered to put in place some level of transparency associated with asset management and disposal. And then arising therefrom, we put in place regulation. The desire and the intention of the regulation is to have some level of visibility, guidance, consistency, and transparency in the process. And we have, as a result, put in place asset recovery regulation guidelines. We have, arising therefrom, put in place asset tracing, recovery, and management regulations of 2019. The intention is not to allow the process to be unguided. And the asset tracing, recovery, and management regulation 2019 put in place comprehensive standard operating procedure. And I think one point of interest relating to the asset tracing, recovery, and management regulation 2019 is that all the agencies of government that are in one way or the other involved in the tracing, recovery, and disposal of the assets are members of that committee. So we have, as members of the committee, the Office of the Attorney General, the EFCC, the ICPC, NDLEA, Navy, which is the custodian of the vessels that are being perhaps detained on account of one infraction or the other, DPR, that are responsible perhaps for providing the security of the assets on board vessels, if any is found, civil defense, NDLEA, and a host of others, inclusive of the police. And then that committee is put in place and inaugurated by the Attorney General, and they are now working together, guided by the guidelines for the purpose of ensuring transparent disposal of the assets. And that committee is chaired by the Solicitor General of the Federation, and all these agencies of government are indeed inclusive of the Ministry of Works and Housing. The Ministry of Works and Housing, for example, is a member taking into consideration that the assets are by tradition and convention to be valued by a department in the Federal Ministry of Works. So whichever asset is indeed meant for disposal must naturally be valued by the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing. DPR, for example, is a member because they are responsible for measuring the quantity and indeed weight of a product, if indeed any product is found on board a vessel, and they are members that will be responsible for assessing the content of a vessel in terms of perhaps a petroleum product, if any. Navy is a member because they are the custodian of some of these vessels. EFCC is a member because they are in charge of economic crimes, and indeed, perhaps when the need for further prosecution or associated things relating thereto arises, they are already on the ground. The Office of the Auditor General is equally a member of that committee, and the intention is to ensure that necessary audit processes are indeed complied with. So, and the same thing as public procurement. So this indeed is what we have put in place as a matter of necessity on account of inability of the National Assembly to provide the legislative framework necessary and required for consistency and efficiency of the system. Perhaps maybe by way of a general rundown and giving a modest insight as to the processes and associated things, that is what we have done, and I'm ready to take further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney General. While you were speaking, and I think I'm going to start from exactly where you stopped.
Yes, sir.
Making laws.
Yes.
Goes through processes. You're aware of that?
Very well.
So which means, you know, the fact that you sent an executive bill doesn't mean that that's the day it's going to be passed.
Yes.
Okay, so I believe that's in progress. But in the absence of this Proceeds of Crimes bill, act,
Yes.
are there any existing laws for management of proceeds of recoveries?
Well, there are indeed, but one thing that I think I need to make clear is that these laws have not been very helpful in terms of coordination and efficient management of the resources, because there are laws that are scattered. For example, talking of the EFCC Act, sorry? Yes. For example, talking of EFCC Act, for example, Section 31 and Section 43 of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission Establishment Act 2004 provides, and I read, the Attorney General of the Federation may make rules and regulations for the disposal or sale of any property or assets forfeited pursuant to this Act. So it was on account of this, among others, taking into consideration associated powers of the Attorney General as contained in Section 150 and Section 174 of the Constitution, that the Attorney General, being perhaps having considered the fact that the legislative processes, which takes a longer period of time, which could have addressed the problem of consistency and efficiency in management of assets, came off with the Asset Tracing, Recovery and Management Regulation 2019, so that the assets that has been there unattended over time on account of absence of the legislative framework came up with the regulation, and it was on account of that that the committee was put in place to see what can be done in terms of salvaging the assets that has been dissipating over time, that have been depreciated on account of the absence of a coordinated legislative framework.
Thank you. You did mention EFCC Act empowers you to take certain action in the Navy, do you?
We do not have similar act, as it relates and statutory responsibilities. There are incidental expectations on the part of the Navy, with particular regard perhaps to the provision of security of the assets, disposed assets, for example. If you are talking of vessels, for example, you understand there is no institution of government that is saddled with the responsibility of taking or perhaps providing the desired security and maintenance of same other than the Navy. That answers your question, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I'm in agreement with you that yes, there is a legal lacuna which ordinarily should have been addressed.
Yes.
By the bill, which I believe is an executive bill, which is with the Parliament.
Yes.
But that notwithstanding, our existing laws actually made provision for management and administration of these proceeds.
Yes.
Because in my opinion, they amount to revenue.
They are not.
I mean, eventually they transform to revenue. And that is why I was a bit worried yesterday when I didn't see my brother, the Accountant General of the Federation,
Yes.
to take, any proceeds anywhere that has been recovered. I'm also in agreement with you, sir, that these proceeds have been captured in the MTF, which pursuant to provisions of Fiscal Responsibility Act, which expects Mr. President to lay before the Parliament for approval before the budget is transmitted. So I am in agreement with you with everything you said. Mr. Chairman, I just want to draw attention to what we should actually focus on. What we should focus on is the Attorney General and his team haven't recovered this loot. Our focus should be application, so that we don't waste time. We should actually focus on application. The Accountant General being the Chief Treasurer, the Chief Accountant of the Federation.
We're going to do that. I think what we're trying to do was, because he raised that issue concerning the National Assembly, we needed to let him know that it's not like, I think it was, it was an indirect thing that not related to that, we need to do to that. Mr. Attorney General, I think there was one other thing you said. You said every fund recovered either as cash or from sale of asset is transferred into the consolidated revenue account. Would that be correct?
No, it's all right, sir. You see, funds generated generally, they equally have multiple dimensions. For example, there are certain recovery processes initiated that are through judicial process. While the case is ongoing, you may make recoveries before the final determination of the case. As far as those funds as far as the recovery of those funds are concerned through the investigative processes, while the case is ongoing, they are not funds available for immediate transmission to the Consolidated Revenue Fund, because their availability for transmission to Consolidated Revenue Fund is contingent on judicial determination of the case. So you have in place, available at the central bank, what is called interim forfeiture account.
No, we're aware of that, but we're not going to dwell much on interim forfeiture account.
Okay.
We're asking for final forfeiture account.
So when the funds are finally forfeited, the Federal Ministry of Finance has the responsibility of taking custody exclusively, and the Office of the Attorney General has no role whatsoever to play as far as the administration of those funds are concerned.
Okay, let me put it this way.
Yes.
The assumption is that whatever is in a final forfeiture account, every revenue will be transferred into the consolidated revenue account.
That is the assumption.
Good. Now, can spendings be made before the funds are transferred to the revenue account, to the consolidated account?
Not by the Office of the Attorney General. Is never a signatory to any of such accounts. Not a signatory to any of these accounts, the interim, the final, and associated, and much less of the...
Has the Office of Accountant General ever received funds from this account?
Sorry?
Has the Office of Attorney General ever received funds directly from this account?
The Office of the Attorney General has at no point in time ever received a kobo associated with the recoveries, because not even cost of collection has been sanctioned by the federal government. So the Office of the Attorney General is not a recipient, is not a beneficiary of a dime arising from this account.
I'm going to send a statement of account from CBN from the account.
Yes.
Showing payment to your office on 20th February 2017.
Sorry. Which particular item? The one highlighted? I have seen multi-debit entry, but I don't know what that stands for.
Who is the recipient?
Sorry?
Who is it paid to?
MDC are a paid beneficiary. Which one? What is this?
Please, I mean, somebody can read it out. I mean, I think you should read it out. What's the beneficiary, the name of the beneficiary there?
Perhaps, Chairman, maybe kindly read it. I can't read it here. I've not seen.
They told us a non-truth.
We'll address it, Mr. Chairman. Let us just share, look at it.
Attorney General is did money from the recovery account. Mr. Chairman tendered a document before the Attorney General, which we don't have that document. Can you kindly, Mr. Chairman, read to us what is contained on the document so that we can move forward?
Mr. Attorney General, I think
The Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice had a budgetary provision in the 2016 budget of about 3 billion to fund certain critical activities, especially the backlog of solicitors' fees, as well as properly repositioning the ministry. So what I'm trying to say arising from this paragraph is budgetary provision and not recovered assets.
I can hear you clearly. Can
So-
I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
Do you pay money for budgetary position from recovered account or from the consolidated revenue?
So where the money comes from is a function of the Federal Ministry of Finance, and I'm not making specific requests out of the recovered assets. Not at all.
The question I asked you was, have you ever received monies from the recovery account? And you said no.
Not the recovery, budgeted money. As budgeted and appropriated by the National Assembly, but certainly not exclusively from the recovered assets. From the recovered assets, no. Budgetary provision, yes.
It's a good thing the Accountant General is here, so we'll take it to him later.
Yes,
but
please.
then I still want you to look at this.
Yes.
What does the payment, what payment from a revenue account, do you pay to ministry from a revenue account or from the consolidated revenue account?
I am not in a position with the Federal Ministry of Finance to Federal Ministry of Justice were made from. That is exclusively the mandate and function of the Federal Ministry of Finance and not the Office of the Attorney General. Once there exists a budgetary line, budgetary item, my responsibility is to make a request to the Federal Minister of Justice, and I do not deduct at source.
No, I mean, the reason we're taking you on this, because you're the chief.
Really, no recovered items.
Okay, as a law officer,
Yes.
are you saying that the Federal Minister of Finance has done something illegal?
I am not in a position to assess them. All the facts are not before. My responsibility is to consider fair hearing, and I have not heard from them.
There's a possibility that they have done, and they have done something that they should ordinarily not do.
I cannot be preemptive in assessment when the facts are not fully before me.
Thank you.
Like I've said before, the Attorney General has clearly laid the legal framework, the background. And he has, as far as I'm concerned, he has shifted the issues of accountability to the Ministry of Finance and the Accountant General of the Federation. Sir, the Attorney General has also cleverly shifted the issues to us that the money he asked for is based on their own act that we produce, the Appropriation Act. That being the case, Mr. Chairman, the area we should focus our attention to is to tell Nigerians, is to account to Nigerians their assets, their funds that were to stolen, looted, that has now been recovered or that is undergoing recovery, and which are now in the hands of the Accountant General of the Federation, which we also as the Parliament also recognized in our projection in the MTEF in the Appropriation Act made provision to. Mr. Chairman, sir, now the issue we should shift attention to are two in nature. One, Mr. Chairman, take note, the assets recovered, were they sold at a rate that is undervalued? Two, the money so recovered, what they were put to be used on, is there value for money? If there are projects, can we conduct, aside financial audit, can we look at performance and project audit? I think that is the focus of this committee. And we're also backed by the Constitution that we should harness our resources and ensure that they are efficiently deployed. So, Mr. Chairman, sir, we should look at the funds, the application, what the funds that have been recovered, what they were applied to. And we should shift the issues to the Accountant General of the Federation.
Honorable.
Thank you.
Honorable, I think inventory. When you're inventorizing, it means that you look at everything. What's been forfeited? What's it being held? Then the management. Management will just have, when it's expensive, even the process. If you're supposed to manage something and you're not following due process, you have failed to manage. If the law says that every revenue should be paid in the consolidated revenue account, and you start spending money from the recovery account, there is an infraction. Good. So that now, because our job is to investigate and look at process as well. And that's why we're asking this question about process. Is it possible? I mean, I'm Yoruba. In my place, they said, Oleko judges a man who shares teeth with his mouth. What we're asking is this looted fund being shared like a man who's sharing meat with his teeth? We need to assume that the meat is on the table and is being shared openly, rather than being shared with the teeth. I think that's what we're trying to cover there. Thank you. Yeah.
From head to toe. I think, Chairman, since we had the Attorney General of the Federation, and he read the laws, and he even read relevant laws passed by this National Assembly in terms of the MTEP, in terms of the Appropriation Act, and in terms of even the EFCC Act. Like my honorable colleague said, okay, let's listen to him. Along the line, when we listen to other stakeholders, like the Accountant General of the Federation, and any other agency that is holding the recovered loots, whether it's transferred to consolidated revenue account, whether it's holding somewhere, whether it's generating interest somewhere, then that will give us another mandate to go further and found out, so that when we are doing our mandate, one, like you said, the management, two, the sources, how the recovered loots, even if it is in terms of property or in terms of cash, even now, their application, how, the relevant laws, how, so that this is, we go step by step, so that at the end of the day, we come up with something that we tell Nigerians, this is the position of their recovered loots. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Honorable. Office and other arms of government shall maintain a separate bank account for revenue at the Central Bank of Nigeria or any other designated bank by the Accountant General. The balance of the account shall be transferred to the Consolidated Revenue Fund account as in Financial Regulation 209. Yes. On no account, I want to repeat that, on no account shall any withdrawal be made from the revenue account other than for the purpose of transfer to the consolidated account. Yes. Now, if money is being paid from the recovery account to a parastatal, I mean, I'm not saying there's a problem in the Attorney General. It's an question that we're going to put to the Accountant General of the Federation when it comes to him, but we're just paying attention to that. So it's not about saying we're looking at recovery, we're looking at the processes as well. If the law says this is how you're supposed to spend money, whether it is budgeted or not, there is no reason you should spend budgetary funds directly. It means that anybody can just do it. So it's either that's the problem, the Accountant General means that they just spend this money without following due process or something. We will come to Accountant General later. But let me read this out to the Attorney General because his correspondent, which brought about this morning. Some request for approval for a fair critical payment in respect of Federal Ministry of Justice from the recovered funds. That's the heading. It says request for approval to a fair critical payment in respect of Federal Ministry of Justice from the recovered, which means the Attorney General knows that this is coming from the recovered funds, which means that the Attorney General knows that he's making a request that is against the law. That's all. By correspondence, reference 08MF/PICA/PRES/61, volume 135, the Minister of Finance indicates that the Solicitor General of the Federation and Permanent Secretary of the Federal Ministry of Justice is requesting for additional funding for the prosecution of cases. Additional funding for prosecution of cases. The Honorable Attorney General of the Federation and Ministry of Justice is requesting for additional funding for payment of accrued solicitors' fees. You see, what we're saying is you're asking for solicitor fees and funding of cases from a recovered fund account.
No, don't worry.
I don't think it's proper. I don't think it's proper. I think that's what we're drawing attention to. There are other things there that security issues that I do not want to read out.
Yeah.
And the question I would have asked you that can't read out, especially when it comes to Mr. Tadija, don't distract him, please.
Yeah.
The questions I want to ask in regards to the payment you received, this payment of 2 billion naira you received for prosecution of terrorist suspects, was it supposed to come from that account or should have been part of your budgetary spending?
Yes.
Is it that when you exhaust your budget, you ask these people, send me some money? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think document, I am talking of the letter dated 16th January 2017 is concerned, which was forwarded to me by the committee for consideration. 1, no reference was made in paragraph 1, which is the opening paragraph, to any correspondence emanating from the Attorney General. I think that should be clear. And then 2, the title of the letter is not re, which implies a previous correspondence. Until the originating correspondence is made available to me, honestly, I am not in a position to join issues over the title, much less of the body of the letter. There is nothing other in the title as indicating a previous correspondence from the Office of the Attorney General. Neither is there anything in the opening paragraph making reference to a letter from the Office of the Attorney General. Mr. Chairman, I humbly request that if there is originating correspondence from our office, it should be made available to me to refresh my memory.
Thank you. Like I said, I'm drawing your attention to this because you're the chief law officer.
Yes.
And you know the law more than all of us.
Yes.
And so when we're doing, I think that's what we want to put on record.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, but even at that,
Mr. Chairman, as I stated earlier, I maintain my position. This is a singular document that is presented for my consideration, and no opportunity has been accorded to me to find out from the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning for the purpose of having a holistic assessment of the situation. I cannot jump to conclusion in terms of judgment on the basis of a document that is perhaps alleged to have emanated from a source without interrogating the source, Mr. Chairman.
We will interrogate the source. Two movable assets. Who keeps the inventory?
the inventory?
Yes.
Before now, the agencies of government that is responsible. For example, if on account of sting operation, DSS now perhaps maybe recovered certain assets, it remains in their custody. If on account of perhaps investigation, EFCC make recoveries of certain assets, the assets remain in its custody. And they were the exclusive custodian of knowledge and information associated with it. And the same thing with NDLEA, the same thing with customs and all other agencies of government. Whichever agency make recovery remains the custodian of the asset.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
No, please, Mr. Chairman, sir. As far as I am concerned, I'm Representative Rekonlariwaju representing Abeokuta. That's the question, sir. Your question is direct.
Okay.
So
within
you
the
need
context.
a direct answer.
There's no
reason for if. Your question is direct. So a direct answer first, then any other thing can follow. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Recovered is responsible for the maintenance and keeping of the asset.
Okay, so since you established interministerial committees coordinating sales, isn't that the right thing?
Yes, the asset trace, the interstudy remains with the agencies that
the question is about inventory.
The inventory as to what has been what has been taken or has been recovered, and then from whom, and then the status as to whether it is entering or final forfeiture. The Federal Minister of Justice that has now created a database arising from the absence of coordination with a view to bring about the desired transparency, accountability, and coordination of the process. So it is a new innovation being brought into the process of the asset recovery.
Disparities in returns by different agencies. Let me give you an example. Vessels. The FCC says they hand over this number of vessels to your office. The Navy gives a different number, and you have a different number. The same items, different inventories, different figures. Why do you think this is happening?
Why the inconsistency? And I think that is why the oversight functions are put in place. I would suggest perhaps that the National Assembly should exercise its oversight functions. I am not in all sincerity in a position to confirm the inconsistency or discrepancies associated with the number of assets.
You set out a list of assets, especially vessels that you're selling. You have court cases, I think you came about 138 vessels.
Yes.
Where did you get this list from? Is it not from the agencies?
From the agencies, yes.
Okay, so which means, I mean, if I get 10 naira from 3 different people, it will amount to 30 naira, won't it?
If you ask me a question,
no, I'm trying to just please.
Yes.
We're friends.
We are.
Thank you very much. If I receive 10 naira from 3 different people, how much will it amount to?
From how many people?
10 naira from 3 people.
30.
Good. So now, if at the end of the day you now find out that 10 naira from 2 different people amount to 24,000 naira, won't I be right to ask questions?
You are entitled to call for reconciliation.
Thank you. I think that's what I'm asking, because the contradictions, the questions we put to the EFCC where they show up, and then of course the Navy when we meet with them, because there are contradictions that we need to reconcile.
Well, if there are contradictions, I suggest that you first a resolution.
Thank you very much.
I will call on the PAMSEC to address that question. He is the chairman of the committee put in place, Interministerial Committee for Disposal.
I think there was a judgment from the Federal High Court, Lagos, striking that regulation. I don't know what you have done, because somehow I appreciate the testimony and then your effort to see that our laws are strengthened so that we can manage this recovered assets. But I don't know what you are doing with that position of the Federal High Court Lagos striking that regulation. I don't know whether you are aware of that. And what are you doing so that at least it will help you continue to manage these assets that are recovered?
Which states that the executive functions of the Federal Republic of Nigeria shall be performed by the President or the Vice President or ministers or all the ministers or other public officers. And upon that, and also by virtue of the Asset Tracing, Recovery and Management Regulation of 2019, having laid the foundation, let me just quickly brief you on what we have done.
Now, I think you quoted the Constitution.
Yeah.
And I think you should answer that other question first.
No, I'll answer that one.
I think you should finish that.
No, that question is, can you first of all answer that question?
Yes.
The judgment, which is the Honorable Rep has referred to, is not directly, with due respect, it was a judgment given against the EFCC, not to the Honorable Attorney General. Attorney General was not a party to that judgment.
What was the content of that judgment?
No, I might not greatly remember it, but I know that Attorney General is not or was not, whichever way, because I learned that the EFCC is handling that on their own. But if Attorney General is not a part to a matter, how is it now relevant with that, with due respect? So that issue, sir.
Mr. Pierce, I'm not a lawyer, but then if there's a judgment, are you not required to take judicial notice of the judgment?
Sir?
I said, if there was a judgment
that judgment,
the reason I'm raising this is that you said the judgment was against the EFCC.
That is exactly what I'm saying.
EFCC is part of the interministerial committee.
No, the EFCC, I can't readily grasp the judgment, but what I read in that judgment, in that matter, is that the EFCC went to court and they raised that issue, and court made an arbiter on that issue. But as it relates to the functions of the Attorney General, of what the President has already submitted, I don't think it has any relevance.
PS, with due respect, let me help you.
Can you speak?
I'm sure you know the title of the judgment, but just keep the title aside. What we are saying, that regulation was based on EFCC law. The regulation that was formulated was based...
No!
Hold on, sir.
That is not the judgment, sir.
Hold on, sir. I want you to educate me. I'm not interrogating you. I want you to educate me so that the job the House gave us to make a good assessment on the status of all recovered movable and immovable assets will help us to come up with a beautiful report that will table before the House that will help the Nigerian people. I just want you to educate me. There was a judgment on a regulation made by the Attorney General, the Chief Law Officer of... We're not interrogating the Attorney General, no. But what we are saying, there was a judgment on this recovery, tracing, recovery management regulation, which was attached to, which is part and parcel of EFCC law. That's the point I'm making. What are you doing to address that so that it will help us in moving forward, adopt effective recovery and management of these assets? Since you have some impediments, there is a judgment. What are we doing?
Let me answer. Honorable Sada. First, by the Attorney General in pursuance of the statutory functions vested in him arising from the EFCC Act. It is only logical in the circumstances that when the authenticity, validity, and efficacy of a regulation is an issue, a regulation passed by the Attorney General, it is only logical that the Attorney General should be made a party, because that will afford the Attorney General an opportunity to now join issues where an instrument that emanated from him is an issue. But over and above all, I think what needs to be emphasized as far as the judgment of a court is concerned are two fundamental and key things. One, whether the pronouncement is reason for the decision or is an obiter, a passing remark. And that is where being a lawyer will make a difference. A judgment, a pronouncement by a judge that is a passing remark cannot constitute an issue, a binding issue for that matter. And a pronouncement that is the reason for the decision can only have been possible where the Attorney General in the circumstances was made a party. And I am happy to state that the Attorney General has not been privy to any case where the regulation in its own right is presented for determination of the court. And to my mind, the likely position is that there was a passing and not a binding remark. And if it was indeed a passing remark, it does not hold water for the purpose of establishing a position, a legal issue. But at any rate, when a judgment is an issue, the best way you can do justice to it is to read it over. Unfortunately, I am not in a position to come up with a precise position related to such judgment because I have not indeed gone through it. Thank you.
Let me just quickly give an general what we are doing presently.
Let's not dwell too much. I just want to understand the process, how you acquire items that you're into auction. I think let's just deal with that.
What we have done is to, since the Attorney General had already stated that all the MGs, ICT,
submit to you.
EFCC,
Do you keep inventory of them?
Submitted to the committee one, and they submitted the list of the forfeited items. There are three types. There are some that are under interim forfeiture. There are some that are under final forfeiture. There are some that are still under investigation and pending in court. So those ones that are under forfeit, that has already finally forfeited, what we have done is presently we have gone out to, number one, we place advertisement in the paper for valuers, just like the Attorney General has already said, and we have already received valuers, estate valuers to value all these assets. That's number one. Then number two is that the assets have now been, or they are now being tagged so as to identify those ones. After that one, if you remember, about 2 weeks ago, we put in advertisement for auctioneers, so that we are calling in the auctioneers so that after the valuation of this thing, which is also in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Housing, Federal Ministry of Housing, then we now go into the auction. Thank you very much.
By way of further elaboration, Mr. Chairman, the interministerial committee put in place have indeed first obtained the necessary court orders. As you know, constitutionally, you cannot dispose of an asset without the benefit of a court order. So those court orders, in some cases interim and in some cases final, were obtained. With those court orders, we proceeded to the next step of valuation of the asset to ascertain the actual price that it should go for. And that has been done by the auctioneers and in the working with the Federal Ministry of Finance, Department of Valuation, Federal Ministry of Works and Housing, which has a department that is responsible for valuation of assets associated with the federal government. So the next process is publication of the assets generally that are under final forfeiture, available and ripe for disposal, and entertainment of the general public to bid for such assets. And then on the basis of such bidding, the final decision of disposal can now be taken. So perhaps maybe by way of further elaboration, that I think is equally helpful.
Okay, so the question now is, have you carried out any sale before now? Any auction?
Any auction?
Have you carried out any auction of any asset?
Chairman will answer.
Was before the inauguration of this committee. Let me just quickly state from example, the Navy finds out that there's most of these vessels sometimes they create major environmental problem into our heights. They write to us requesting that these vessels have some problems and there's a need for urgent disposal. And while we're doing that one, so these are the ones that we have done before the inauguration of this committee.
Okay, so what was the term for that auction, the one pre-inauguration? What was the time? What was your agreement with the auctioneer? The reason I'm asking is, how do you pay the auctioneer?
How do you get the auctioneer?
How do you pay the auctioneer? I mean, if someone does a job for you, you're going to pay him. How do you pay him?
It was advertised.
How do you pay him?
Pay,
yes. You have to pay the auctioneer, or do they get a percentage of sales? That's what I want to know.
Well, from the Navy, establishing that we constituting obstruction in the national waterways. obstruction in the national waterways, among others, on account of the peculiar circumstances and situation, we wrote to the President, intimating the President on the need arising from the request of these agencies to take immediate steps, and that was before the 2019 regulation. An approval was given. Arising from that approval, these vessels were assessed in terms of in value sense by the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing and the Office of the Attorney General on the basis of the law allowing the office to conduct the sales, took a decision to dispose those assets, and the proceeds were eventually deposited into the asset recovery and management account. And then thereafter, because the office arising from the law equally was empowered to engage associated services, but those services cannot be paid by the office, can only be paid by the Federal Ministry of Finance. So the associated documents establishing engagement are forwarded to Federal Ministry of Finance for processing and payment.
And I'm sure you know from which account the payment is made.
Certainly.
You don't know. Okay, that's what I said. But
maybe I will give you a general answer as well. International. The Office of the Attorney General had course to engage lawyers, local and international, to engage in the recovery exercise, and they do that for a fee.
Yeah, right.
We are taking notes, and I will kindly ask you to advise the minister to be very specific. What I have witnessed so far is stories, and we're writing notes because some of your answers are, Mr. Attorney General, could be evasive, if I'm allowed to say that. But we know you are rendering account as much as you know, and we appreciate that. But we must be able to put something down. So, Mr. Chairman, we want specific answers, because by the time we have all these stories, we can't write anything. We need to have a reference point. Thank you very much.
Seeking confirmation from the central bank, and such confirmations are received. I write to the central bank in respect of each claimed lodgement made for confirmation before processing and taking further necessary actions. And the CBN kept confirming the receipt. And then in respect of each and every one that has not been confirmation, we can certainly not take any action over it.
Thank you. I'm just going to draw attention to that. I mean, first, I'm in receipt of your letter, your demand, received 23rd May 2019. And I think before that, you had written a letter to the CBN asking for confirmation of the payment of 153 million naira, which they wrote you a letter back on 12th April 2019, specifying that the amount was received on 30th of March. We have looked at the statement of account submitted by the CBN. I mean, statement of account as well. Everything. And the amount of 153 million, which they said they've received, is not in the statement of account. We can show it to you, please.
Without going through the documents provided by the chairman, let me state that my duty in the recovery sense is to ensure that value is, the amount is lodged with the central bank for confirmation. And I'm not in a position, because I do not operate accounts with the central bank. That is the more reason why I had to have recourse to them where a claim of lodgement is made. And
I think I explained to you
and
that
if
we're giving you information as well. We're dealing with management of public funds, public assets. We want this thing well managed, you want it well managed, which means we're drawing your attention to this now to see if there are other ways in which you can actually monitor that this is actually received.
I have no any other way alive to confirm lodgement with the central bank other than a correspondence from the central bank. So if there seems to be any perhaps infraction or perhaps associated inadequacies associated with such information, I think the central bank is in the best position to answer that question.
No problem. We have invited the governor of CBN because we need to understand how 153 million naira of public fund got missing in transit.
Please.
We've got to find out if it's still in the pipeline, and we'll look for the pipeline.
on that infraction, because I'm not in a position without your prompting arising from your constitutional role to now perhaps maybe identify this inadequacy or lacuna associated with it.
I think that's one of the things I was coming to, that we will have opportunity to have further interaction outside this public hearing.
Okay,
because there are a lot of things we need to draw your attention to.
Yes.
We mentioned to you a lot of things. I mean, we've already done almost half a day. We have about 30 questions. We're taking just about half of that.
Yes.
Now we want to actually be able to take the accountant general, because there's a correlation between the question we're asking you and his office and then of CBN as well. So we want to be able to take their side, so that when we have further questions, we will invite you and talk with you again.
Okay, thank you.
So we thank you for your cooperation. We
Thank
you for, understanding that it's a public duty to all.
Yeah.
Mr. Accountant General.
Thank you.
How many accounts have you have and are they managed?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, honorable members. Good afternoon once again. The Office of the Accountant General of the Federation is the Treasury of the Federation and is responsible for opening accounts of the Federation and indeed the federal government. We are responsible for opening all the recovery accounts. We open them, we maintain them, and we run them. So they are in our custody. Essentially, there are about 4 recovery accounts. One, there is the asset recovery account, the main asset recovery account.
Mr. Chairman.
We also have...
Can I interject, please? Mr. Accountant General, sir, that may be more helpful than when you say about 4.
I'm sorry for using that word about. There are recovery accounts as follows. One, main asset recovery account. There is also final forfeiture, which there is interim forfeiture account, and in this interim forfeiture account, it has some 2 legs. We have EFCC account. There is also ICPC account. These are the main accounts in focus. In addition, when we talk of recovery accounts, we also have dollar account, we have pound sterling account, we have euro account. These accounts are integral parts of all these accounts, either EFCC or ICPC. If there is any FX designated recovery, either in dollar or in pound sterling or in euro, we open a separate account. So these accounts are there, and the balances are there, the account numbers are there. Now, as far as management of these accounts are concerned, we simply rely on
Mr. Chairman, for the purpose of records, Mr. Accountant General, you made mention, you ran down some names of accounts, main accounts, main asset accounts, that's 1. Interim accounts, that's 2. Final forfeiture accounts, that's 3, which has, the interim has 2 legs, which you said EFCC account, that is 4. ICPC account, that is 5. We have dollar account, that is 6. We have pound sterling account, that is 7. We have euro account, that is 8. I want us, I'm not an accountant. You open these accounts.
Can I
It's for the purpose of our secretariat so that they get you correct.
Yes, I have something in writing here.
Okay.
And I will give it to the Honorable Chair for guidance.
Do you have another copy?
Okay, thank you. I think I have the yes. Yes.
So for guidance of the committee, at least the list is there. But there are main accounts, you know. So let me go back to my presentation. We, as much as possible, rely on approvals given to us before we allow any payment out of any of these accounts. And the approvals mainly are by the, authority of Mr. President through the Honorable Minister of Finance. No any other institution, no any other authority is taken to withdraw or to incur any expenditure out of these accounts. There was a mention, anyway, let me not talk on issues that have not raised, that have not been addressed to me. I will allow questions to come before I preempt them. But I know there are issues and questions asked the Honorable Attorney General, which I think I could provide better answer to. And in due course, I believe the questions will come up because I know I'm also going to be asked the same questions. So we run the accounts, we maintain them, we open them, and we rely on authority of the presidency through the Honorable Minister of Finance to make payments out of such accounts.
I want you to repeat what you just said.
I said we open the accounts, we maintain the accounts, we are custodians, and we rely on authority of the presidency through the Honorable Minister of Finance to make disbursements out of such accounts. And
I mean, out of the consolidated revenue account or out of the recovery account?
That's great. I think we are coming to one of the questions you asked the Honorable Attorney General. With the emergence of TSA, Honorable Committee, the consolidated revenue account is now one.
Good.
And it is a single account, which has subdivisions, sub-accounts, but which are linked together operationally, and we can see for the purpose of consolidation, aside of the individual balances in the account, what is there, as an overall balance, reflecting the consolidated revenue account. So TSA, in essence, technically replaced the consolidated revenue account. One payment is made, the question of under present circumstance that you have not made payment out of CRF does not arise. It is one single account. They are linked technically, and that is the essence and the import of TSA. I think this clarification is necessary, and it can be given not by any other person, but by the Treasurer of the Federation. And I'm giving this explanation. To TSA.
All revenue
They
accounts.
are all TSA sub-accounts. They are linked. There is one single account now, TSA, and it has subsets, sub-accounts. Recovery accounts are subsets of the TSA. They are linked, Honorable Chair.
Okay. Let me ask you a question. I don't know accounting, so I need to understand. Do you make payment for non-budgetary? Do you make releases that are not in the appropriation?
All payments, as far as we know, as a treasury, are part of the appropriation. The recoveries we are talking about, is a complete line as part of IGR in the Appropriation Act. In 2021, we have about 23 billion provided. So there is nothing which is out of appropriation, as far as we know, based on the fact that there is a line, recovery, on the IGR of federal government, and we are making payment reflecting such provision in the Appropriation Act.
I'm going to send you a note now. I want you to look at it.
Yes.
And I'll read out the highlighted section, please. I'm going to send it to you.
For Your Excellency, there is no budgetary provision for many of these approvals. So,
okay. Just read any other thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thus, a gradual settlement is being recommended.
Okay. Was the money released?
Yes. Pardon?
The fund for which approval was sought, was it not released?
Well, I'm looking at this document for the first time. I don't
Just
even,
open the front
I
page.
don't know what it represents. This was in 2017, a letter written in 2017, and it was written to His Excellency, Mr. President, by the Honorable Minister of Finance, and I'm just seeing a sentence out of a letter with about 6 paragraphs and many prayers. So I read it as such, and I understand it as I read it.
So that you understand what I'm driving at.
If there is anything that is not provided in some of the expenditure items that are not provided in the budget, I don't even know which items do these constitute.
If I can have the letter back.
Yes.
And what's the tenor of a budget? The tenor of a budget of an annual appropriation, what is the tenor?
The tenor is 12 calendar months of an annual budget.
Okay, so is it possible that you could pay, let's say, funds meant for 2017 budget in 2019?
No. It all depends on situations we find ourselves. I know
Let's assume let's assume that the overhead for the ministry was not, for your ministry or for your office was not paid in 2017. The budget year ended March 2018.
Yes.
And then you now release the funds in 2020. Is it possible?
No, I don't think such is possible, because once the year lapsed, it lapsed as far as overheads are concerned. But for capital, there could be extension, there could even be an opportunity for warehousing. All these arrangements are there, and they are part of the process and tradition of the Treasury. Okay,
I'm going to show you this. I'm going to read out this document, which is from your office to the Director of Banking Services, Central Bank of Nigeria, dated 3rd April 2019. Fund transfer, payments of outstanding balance of 2017 allocation of the Presidential Amnesty Program. This was 2019. You're paying it for 2017 program in April 2019. Is that normal? It said purpose of payment being amount released from recovered fund to cover expenses. Recovered fund to cover expenses relating to 2017 fiscal year. Why are you paying 2017 funds in 2019?
May I have privilege to see the document? Honorable Chair, is this the second page? Thank you. Funds transfer, payments out of outstanding balance of 2017, allocation to the Presidential Amnesty Program, asset recovery. Amount released, recovered. Honorable Chair, this is possible. This is possible. Year in, year out, government operates its activities sometimes, or many times. There are instances where services there are instances where services incurred and, programs. Oh, okay.
We would like you to repeat for our record what you said concerning payment.
A situation where payment of a particular year is made in a subsequent year is possible. For instance, we are seeing this being 2017 expenditure being paid in 2019. And I'm saying it is possible. And I will explain.
Is that how the operation cycle works?
No. Let me explain, Honorable Chair. I think you deserve some explanation.
Thank you.
So, because as we run our operations, sometimes for reasons, administrative reasons, whatever reasons, lack of funding, we are aware that no given year, particularly for extra overheads, did we pay fully. Sometimes we give overheads to MDAs for 9 months. There was a year we gave for only 8 months. So the tendency to incur liabilities is there. It's just there. It may be an outsourced service. I'm just giving an example.
No, what I don't, I mean, where this budgetary head is not rolled over.
So what happens is, this is just one of the situations where accumulated liability of previous year is paid in another year, which is also normal. We have it even, not just this year.
Is it rolled over or just?
It's not a matter of rollover. There is provision in the budget for payment of local liabilities generally.
Okay.
And this, I believe, is part of that.
And overhead will fall in that line as well.
Well, when we say overhead, outsourced services are overheads. For instance, if you engage security, or if you engage services of cleaners, these are overheads. If they are not paid, and you are paying in the subsequent year, you are paying for overhead services. So it's possible, Honorable Chair. We cannot rule out a possibility like this. But more importantly,
the Accountant General, sir.
Yes.
You are not likely to pay all the liabilities in a financial year. It is possible. And so it may be rolled over. But when we expect that in the new year, that there will also be appropriation to take care of it. So in this case, since you are paying an overhead for 2016 financial year in in 2019, the question that one should ask, sir, is that do you have appropriation for sale?
There is, I don't know the figure exactly, but I know there is provision for payment of local liabilities. And these local liabilities are not limited to overhead alone, include services and other,
we're not disputing that, sir. That what we are saying is, if government owes a debt, yes, you have to pay.
Well, what I'm saying is, Honorable, there is provision of, payment to local contractors, payment of local liabilities in the appropriation. There is.
General.
Well, I cannot say general.
Open-ended.
It's not an open-ended. It is a specific amount, and we have to work within that specific amount. There is no year payment of such liabilities supersedes what is provided in the budget. I'm not aware of any particular financial year where payment to local liabilities or of local liabilities goes beyond what is provided.
Specifics. Thank you, Accountant General.
Thank you.
Mr. Accountant General, does signatures matter in public documents, financial matters?
It does, seriously.
Which means that if I write you a check and I sign a fake signature, you have the right to reject it.
Honestly, signature is key.
So when somebody, a public officer, intentionally use a different signature, what does this point to sign a public document? Is it an indication of fraud or somebody trying to hide something?
This is abnormal and should not be acceptable.
Okay, please, I'm going to pass these documents to you. There are 3 documents of 23 billion naira for 23 million naira. Please show it to him. Look at the signature there. A second one, same to Central Bank, for $23 million. Please check, same number, same signature, check it. A third one to Governor of CBN for another $23 million. You could see the signatures are the same.
These are genuine signatures?
No, good. No, I mean, I'm coming to it. I'm going to show you one.
Okay.
Now, this is for the sum of 20 billion naira, signed by Alexander Adeyemi. Please check, cross-check the signatures.
Yes. These signatures are from the Office of Accountant General of the Federation.
The one on the 23 billion?
Yes.
Is it the same signature?
Let me make...
It's the same name.
Is
the same signature?
This is for file copy, initials. This is the one that goes to the CBN. That is how signatures are made. I don't make my full signature for the one that is remaining in my own file. I just sign like this. If you check all records in my office, this is it. This is the full signature. This is the document that has gone to CBN.
So the documents you sent to us, were they not file copies?
Well, it could be the same, but this is just our signature.
Mr. Adeyemi here?
Mr. Adeyemi is my Director of Revenue and Investment, and this is how we sign.
Okay.
Anyone going, the original will carry this.
The copy you're holding, is that CBN copy or your file copy?
This is CBN copy.
That's CBN copy?
Yes. This is our file copy. All these are our file copy. I claim this. These are my signatures. This is the way I sign.
Well, since Mr. Adeyemi is not here, we can't. So I rule that you present Mr. Adeyemi here.
No.
I'm a defender. Please, we'd like to see Mr. Adeyemi to
Can I call him now? He can come now immediately.
No, we'd like to see Mr. Adeyemi because it's not your signature.
Please call Mr. Adeyemi to come.
We need to know.
We will affirm these signatures before you, and if even in minuting.
Yes.
Even in minuting, all my memo to Honorable Minister carry this. But when I'm signing out, it is this.
We would like to see Mr. Adeyemi.
Please call him.
This committee. When you are coming, Mr. Chairman, I would like to move that Mr. Adeyemi should come with other 5 copies of theirs that will show the same signature as of the one you have shown to you today.
Yes.
Let him cause appearance before this committee with other 4 or 5 file copies addressed to CBN, carrying the same signature before this committee. I so move, Mr. Chairman.
Carried.
He is now Director of Revenue and Investment. Luckily, he is still within my system at my headquarters. So over time, we made changes of directors. He was then acting as Director Funds. He is now Director of Revenue and Investment. We will come up, if possible, can we be given so that we come with exactly the same thing we gave you. And if it is in our report, it doesn't matter, we can simply bring the originals in the files for you to see.
That the Chief Accounting Officer, that section states clearly that it shall be immaterial whether by act of delegation to a person or a group of persons, that the Chief Accounting Officer shall be held responsible. Mr. Chairman, I apply that since the Chief Accounting Officer is here and he has admitted to ownership, to authorship of this document, Mr. Chairman, I apply that the Chief Accounting Officer be cross-examined, be taken up on this document rather than asking for his staff. He has admitted that this is a signature. Yes. He has admitted that there are 2 sets of signature, the one going outside and the file copy. So, Mr. Chairman, I apply that we should cross-examine the Accountant General on the content, on the value, on the application, on the usage of the money in question.
Thank you very much. Signature is personal. Somebody cannot affirm my signature in my absence. I don't think it's proper for us to, yes, we asked him questions concerning it, and that's because we could not, they sent us those documents, we didn't manufacture them. So if they're selling off all 5 copies, how come we got 1 CBN copy out of that? Because this is 20 billion naira of public funds, and we need to understand why. Let the accountant general will come with the person, it's not a ghost. So, and they'll come with originals showing the two. So it's just simply explanatory. We're doing this on a friendly note, we're not fighting. So, and the accountant general appreciate what we're doing. So please, accountant general, you produce him, bring maybe original copies or something that shows this. You're just explaining, and then we'll know that let's remove, any gray areas totally. Thank you.
Can you tell this committee, at any point in time, did you receive any approval of withdrawal from any of these accounts, and who authorized such approval? Did you at any point in time receive any authorization for withdrawals from these recovery accounts that you mentioned to us earlier on? And who made that authorization?
I have mentioned we receive approvals of Mr. President, and only that through the Honorable Minister of Finance for withdrawals from such accounts. And we have the approvals with us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any recovery from the Office of the National Security Advisor?
What happens is, we were directed to open the account, the designated accounts, and we make available details of the accounts. And these accounts are with Central Bank of Nigeria in line with the TSA policy. And so, if there is any recovery by any of these agencies, they normally direct lodgement into that account and inform us in writing. Where, for whatever reason, they fail to inform us, when we receive statement of account from the Central Bank of Nigeria, which we do from time to time, we make reconciliation, and at reconciliation we see an amount coming in, so we contact the particular recovery agency, be it EFCC, so and so and so. Like I told you, we have designated accounts. We know what is coming from who and for who. And so we contact them. We've seen this. Is it, so that in our ledger, because we keep manual, physical ledger for each of these accounts, so that we put clearly the narration that this is recovery from ABC, and it came on this date. So reconciliation, and then we contact the agency for clarification as to from where is the money coming, what is it for.
Thank you. Can you kindly educate me, invariably educating the committee, what is the relationship of TSA and federal government account and consolidated revenue fund?
I think at this point I will answer the question, but I will also want to make a point that the TSA should be given a legal teeth. When I say given a legal teeth, it means going by what we have in the financial regulations, and indeed, even the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which the Honorable Chair was making reference to validly, that as far as the revenues are concerned, they should first go into consolidated revenue fund. Yes, it is there. But with the advent of TSA, everything is now pulled together, centralized, yet with sub-accounts that are linked. So there is need for some amendment of the law The details of which maybe we can talk about later.
Okay.
But the relationship is that all these recoveries accounts are accounts we open with the Central Bank of Nigeria. They are part and parcel and sub-accounts of the TSA as a whole. And if you say, take this money, put it in this account, then it's like you are just saying the same thing. Take from the same account, put in the same account before you spend. No. It is in the TSA, everything is pulled together and is centralized. There is visibility and they are linked. Even though you can say this is account A, account B, account C, but in the end, you can visibly look at it as a whole on a dashboard, right, which is called TSA,
right,
Treasury Single Account.
Okay, I'm a little bit confused. I know it's accounting, you are dealing with figures. What I don't seem to understand, and what most Nigerians, I believe, don't seem to understand is the federal government, that is executive, is operating TSA. Is it using TSA to manage federal government of Nigeria's money or federal or executive money? Because there is these recoveries are on behalf of Nigeria. And then they go to TSA. And then TSA is an executive, is an entity of executive, which is owned by the Accountant General of the Federation, which other states may not agree with you.
You see, there is need for further clarity. There is difference between Consolidated Revenue Fund and Federation account. Federation account. Consolidated Revenue Fund is for the federal government. Federation account is for the entire federation. There are federation revenues. There are federal government IGR revenues. When we go to FAC, we share what is on the federation account. The state governments are represented, the local governments are represented, the federal government is represented.
Mr. Accountant General, hold on. I want to, when you talk about sharing, I know what exactly the Constitution said. The Constitution did not make reference to federation account.
No, the share of the federal government goes to Consolidated Revenue Fund, which is account of the federal government and which is being anchored and tailored, and it's just the TSA. TSA does not apply to federation account. TSA does not apply to federation.
I think there's a question I want to ask you regarding this. Recover loot. Okay? Is it a recovery for only the federal government or for the Nigerian Federation?
Depending on the nature of recovery, I think there is need really to have an in-depth understanding of this. Some recoveries are for state governments, specific state governments. I know there was a time recovery was made on behalf of, is it Plateau State? There was one for Bayelsa, there was one for different states. If Delta, so such recoveries go specifically to those states that for which
let's give an example. I mean, there's something trending. The recovery of Ibori loot. Where will it be paid into?
It was paid to the state. Is it Delta or Delta State? It was paid to Delta State.
But that's contrary to the information that it was.
No.
Used for specific
Any recovery, Honorable Chair, Honorable Committee, any recovery that is, arising from looted funds from a particular state goes to the state. The state governors will not even allow this to fly. You know, Honorable. You know they will not. They will take federal government to court for holding their money. So we don't joke and we don't play with that. We pay them their money.
Okay, sir. Mr. Chairman, sir. Accountant General, please let me see. Accountant General, you enumerated earlier before this committee different types of accounts. I put it to you that you have not totally been honest with this committee with accounts stated. I will want you, Mr. Chairman, sir. Mr. Chairman.
It's listed.
I will want you to please specifically give to this committee with different account numbers. The dollars, the pound sterling, the euro, and the naira account with specific account numbers. You know, we are doing this work for Nigeria. Nigeria comprises of 36 plus 1 states. So give with specific account numbers, please, to this committee. Thank you.
Honorable Chair, all the accounts are enumerated in the paper I gave to you. Some of them we even go ahead to give balances. You cannot have a balance without an account, and there shouldn't be an account without account number. So if there is a balance, then there is an account. If there is an account, then there is an account number, and we should know where it is.
What I'm saying is, it is not all. You have not stated everything. That's what I'm putting to you.
And we
there
get
are still outstanding account numbers.
Wait now.
Wait. You have, what I'm putting to you is not all. You have not given all to this committee.
All the accounts. What is given to me is recovery funds account balance as at September 29.
I think what he wants to know if that account is part of what you wrote. But I think you should deal with this actually.
Well.
You said number of accounts there. I think just to understand, to explain why the difference.
Honorable Chair.
Yes.
To the best of my ability and based on the oath I took before you, I've given you all the facts and all my statements are factual. I have made 2-volume submissions to the Honorable Committee, and I stand by what I submitted. 2 volumes of this. All the accounts, recovery accounts are there. None is hidden, none is missing.
Now, I think the basic question will be, is it possible that CBN is operating accounts that you're not aware of?
As far as I know, being the treasurer, I sanction opening of such account. And if any account is there, I would be surprised to hear that it is existing without my knowledge, without my information, and without visibility to the treasury.
My brother, sir, the accounts which I urge Mr. Chairman to avail you for fair hearing to speak to, sir. Do you know anything about the accounts? Are the account number familiar to you? Do you operate them?
Well, if there is any, being specific, Honorable.
I get the documents, the 2 documents.
Is it? Which one? Okay, this one. Okay. I'm consulting with the operators of the accounts so that we. This paper? No, this is just account balances, this does not.
Excuse me, please. Let me.
Honorable Chair, let one of my directors speak to the document, please.
You have the time, sir. Go through it and then you can.
Yeah, take the mic. Take the mic.
Academic General, sir, why your lieutenant is going, why your lieutenant is going through to confirm whether you are familiar, whether you operate these accounts, that the committee is of the opinion and not accommodated in your submission. Sir, may I ask that we should, Mr. Chairman, sir, with your permission, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, sir. Chairman, with your permission, I think we should address the issues. The issue, sir, is that in the documents before us, where signature issues have been raised earlier, we have contents of various sums, and that is of worry to the Parliament that these various sums, sir, what were they used for? That is one. Two, sir, were there appropriation for them? So those are the issues that we should be looking at, sir. $23 million is not a joke. 20 billion naira is not a small money. You know, those are the issues that Nigerians are interested in, and they want to know what has happened to their money. Thank you.
Before I come to let me just speak to this briefly. There was a time when different agencies were keeping accounts themselves. When I say keeping accounts, they were even going to Central Bank of Nigeria to open account. And there was later a directive, was it in 2018 or 19? I could not remember. That for visibility, for transparency, the Treasury should take control of this account. So EFCC, ICPC, all bring details of your accounts, let us collapse them into this account. We will make further investigation on some of these to find out if it is such pre-consolidation era that we are talking about. I wouldn't take a position as of now. I don't know if I can be availed this. I'm willing to assist the committee to unravel and find out what this stands for.
So how soon can we get your feedback?
We will get this by tomorrow.
By tomorrow, okay. So I rule that you come.
We'll get this by tomorrow.
The clarification by tomorrow.
We'll do it.
No, for document, just for document. Just for him to bring, not on the subject. Mr. Chairman, let me just come to the aid of the Accountant General. Although, fortunately or unfortunately, the Attorney General has been excused, he made mention about the inability of the National Assembly to come up with a law that will help him on tracing, recovery, and the management of recovered and looted funds. While we know there are sufficient laws that can address all those problems. We just didn't want to drag it with the Attorney General, which I know that he knows we have sufficient laws to do that. That's where we are now, because we have the laws to get where we are now. I don't know. Let me ask the Accountant General whether he feels there is need for a legislation from National Assembly to give him some legal backing to open accounts. Like you rightly said earlier on, that there is need to legitimize, to legalize TSA. I think TSA is legalized. Yes, TSA is legitimate. It's a legitimate federal government account. I don't think it requires any law. If I can recollect, you are mean that will give you an opportunity to open accounts.
A legal backing to do my routine job. My routine job is there, and I have the backing already. But I'm saying the advent of TSA has brought about some changes, which in a way can go counter to provisions of the existing laws. And so there is need for some amendments, and we can be key to pointing out where these amendments are needed and are required as far as our operations are concerned. But for our routine job, we are already legally backed, and we are doing that. We are just seeking for key amendments. Finance and Control Act 1958, which is still in force, is one of the issues. And even there are many other issues. A lot of things have happened around public finance reform initiatives at government, at federal level, and there is need really to identify and specifically address some of these matters so that they are not left under lacunas.
Honorable, yes.
And whose mandate and responsibility is it to hold the Treasury, the Financial Secretariat of the funds of Federal Government of Nigeria? And if there is any discrepancy between the person that warehouses and the Secretariat that puts down all the finances as its Treasury, if there's any discrepancy, who should be held accountable, or is it wise to be overlooked? It's just a simple question, sir.
Simple, honorable, but loaded. We are the Treasury, and Treasury has specific functions as provided in the extant rules and regulations. And when you say Secretariat, I really find it difficult to understand exactly what you mean.
That's the Treasury, because anything documentation.
Yes, documentation, custody of accounts, management of accounts, maintenance of accounts, making releases on behalf of government is the function of the Treasury of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and I head the Treasury. So I take responsibility for all this. If there is discrepancy,
that's right,
and I don't know the nature of discrepancy, is it differences arising from balances, from accounts, vis-a-vis the ledger? I mean, this is normal in accounting.
To that. Let me, excuse me, Accountant General.
No, I think, Honorable Chair, I'll still, because I feel it's important to address the matter as it is. Differences in accounting, in finance, management is normal. So all we need to do is to reconcile, to see what is the source of the difference, then what do we do? Is it due to infraction? Then we take necessary measures to address it legally. Is it normal differences? Then we reconcile.
Sorry, sir.
Yes.
Sorry, sir. I think the elementary definition of accounting, which you and I know, systematic method of writing down entries in an orderly manner so that one can see the true financial position at any point in time. And if you're talking about reconciliation, there's a timeline, there's a limit. Reconciliation must be adopted, where you can clearly say that within the 6 months you must have reconciled the account, within the 3 months there must be a ceiling. So I'm asking you, no matter from what trend or the assumption comes from, if there's any discrepancy, there should be a timeline that it must be reconciled. Because what I'm saying is that the document that was sent to you, which you have observed, you now say, okay, give me time to go and look at it. So if there's any discrepancy at the end of the day, somebody is holding the record and somebody is warehousing the funds. So saying that, no, it's normal, no, it's not proper, there must be a timeline for reconciliations to take place. That's exactly just what I want to say.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Accountant General, this COVID loot to December 2020, is that correct? Please, Mr. Chairman, sir, with your permission, I would like him to see this. This document is at when due. The balance there, please, is at when due. Is that your document and you submitted to this committee?
Office of Accountant.
Yes.
To June 2020.
Okay.
This was part of what was raised yesterday.
Please go down, please. Excuse me. No, I have another question to that.
Okay.
Hold on. Then, can you look at this document, please? Second line, please, with your permission, Mr. Chairman.
The same document?
No, this is another one. Okay. Can you read the first 3 lines before Nigerians and this committee, please? The first 3 lines.
Confirmation of recovery of the sum of 5 billion, and so on. I am directed to refer to your letter referenced, yes, dated 19th October 2020, Appendix 1, and to confirm the receipt of 5,494,743.71 euros and credited into the federal government asset recovery account number this, and that. Yes, I read.
Accountant General. Yes. So why is that not reflecting in the document submitted, the balances submitted to this committee? That's 5 million euro. Yes.
That's at September in November. This money came in October, so it's in October statement.
We made submission which gives balances as at November. This is it. Our submission is as at November, and the balances as at September, which reflected in a month later. So they are not in the statement that we submitted.
Mr. Accountant General, I mean, I'm going to just ask.
We have a statement. We have a statement for October which shows this balance, and it's normal. You receive an amount in a given month, and it is reflected in a subsequent month, particularly where FX is involved, not local currency. The statement can be produced.
No, Mr. Chairman, my question to you, Accountant General.
Yes.
Why is it not in the ledger submitted to this committee? Your balance of account different. Your ledger report to this committee, why is it not reflecting that euro, that 5 million euro, why is it not reflecting in the ledger submitted to this committee?
Well, this is what I was telling you. Reconciliation is always there, and all accountants will attest to that.
Billion, we are talking of 5 billion euros.
There is nothing. There is nothing being hidden.
Accountant General, is very
the statements are there.
It's very simple and straightforward. It's very simple and straightforward.
I don't want us to
let me allow one of my directors just to say a word. After all, these receipts were made where we collected. We got this receipt after our submission was made. So there wouldn't have been this.
We will give you an opportunity
from the CVN.
Accountant General, I will give you an opportunity to reconcile some of these things. Just hold on, because there are certain things I'm going to ask that you help us with to make things easier. Okay? Let's look to make these things easy. You do a yearly breakdown of receipts from recoveries.
Yes.
Let's say from 2015 to 2020. You're blocking his view. A yearly breakdown. How much was receipted?
Yes.
How much was spent as expenses, maybe for recoveries? How much was appropriated and balanced? Can we have that from 2015 to 2020?
We will produce this, exactly.
I mean, it makes things easier. I mean,
we will produce this tomorrow.
Good, fantastic. So we expect that
we'll produce this tomorrow.
Okay.
This is an amount received by Central Bank of Nigeria, for which we already submitted this before we even got this letter from CBN.
You see, I'm on your
side.
So
we will update you. By tomorrow, you will get full position.
Accountant General,
yes.
What you see, I've given you thing, and that you have done the appropriate thing. We want to help you to help us so that we can achieve the same goal.
Was not inclusive of this amount. And so, sir, the question we want to ask first of all, sir, is that are you familiar with this document? Are you familiar with this transaction?
That is what I will go and now.
No, but sir, looking at it because, sir, I hold you a duty of care. I watch your back. Sir, I'm representing you here, sir. Sir, the point I'm making is this, sir. If you look at this document, it emanates from your office. And it was addressed to the Attorney General of the Federation. If you take a look at it again, sir. Please, show him. Show him. No, sir. Look at it. Look at the letterhead. Look at the letterhead, sir.
This is confirmation Yeah, it's my own document.
Exactly, sir.
It's my own document.
So, sir, the worry, sir, Accountant General, NTA, please, Uncle, the worry of the committee is that you are asked to give a report up to December 2020. Sir, remember, sir, that we're in 2021 and we're already in May. We are in May. So, sir, it won't be out of place, sir, to ask for a record, financial records, drawn up to 31st December 2020. And that is in October, I guess, last year. So, and I'm very happy that you recognize that it emanated from your office, that it's your document. So I know balances can change. Do you understand? We know balances can change. So if you give a position, say in May, in 2020, it won't be the same in October 2020. So we understand that. But we are just curious, worried that that 5 million euro is not 5,000 naira.
Honorable, the request for information is to November, not to December. It's to November, and we gave our information to November. This came after.
No,
even where we have
which month is this, sir? Which month is this?
This is October.
And this is November.
But the request actually was for information, balances as at September, even though we made it available before committee as at November.
There was one expert that want to have been covered, sir.
But then we are trying to restrict ourselves to the period in question. In any case, this is what came in October and reflected in the accounts after the date of this request.
Okay, my leader, sir, gentlemen, my leader, sir.
In any case,
sir, excuse me, sir.
We agreed.
Accountant General, take this from me.
Yes.
You see, just like the chairman observed, we are not at war.
We are not.
You see, we are working together, to make Nigeria a better place. Mr. Chairman, sir, fair hearing is a very serious constitutional matter. Very serious constitutional matter. Records don't lie. Records don't lie. 5 million euro cannot disappear anyhow. We can trace. Why don't we give the Accountant General an opportunity to update his records? And like I've said, Mr. Chairman, sir, excuse me, sir, what is important, Mr. Chairman, sir, what is important to Nigerians is account of the total amount recovered from loot and proceeds of financial crimes and its application. That is what Nigerians are interested in. And sir, and that is the purpose of this committee. This committee must unearth what the proceeds, what has been used for. If you are saying, excuse me, sir, if you are saying you apply a proceed to Lagos-Ibadan Road, to Kaduna, to Abuja, to Kaduna-Kano Road, do we have value for money? Performance audit, project audit. Those are the issues that we want you to account up to the last kobo based on the submission of the Attorney General of the Federation. The Attorney General of the Federation has given an account, the legal background to all the recoveries. But this committee is interested. The asset you disposed of that you sold, the proceeds, were the asset valued at the way price or the undervalued?
Honorable, we will make this available, this information available tomorrow. Tomorrow, as we said.
Let me intervene here.
Yes.
I tried to help you, and I stated the things we need to do to make things very easy. You've sent us, okay, this is how much was received. I mean, like my colleague mentioned when the Attorney General was explaining, you paid him money. It's not his business to know where you paid from. So what we want to do is now benchmark how much was received. Break down, this is how much was received from this. This is how much was expended. And then you itemize who and who it was paid for. Then you give us the balance. Because if, let's assume you receive 100 billion naira in 2019, and you spent 100 billion naira, we want to know what projects, or for what, is it for NSIP? Were they paid to NSIP? You give us the date. Was he paid to this to give us the date? Was he paid maybe discretionary spending? You let us know. You know, those are the things we want you to have in that document that you're going forward to tomorrow.
We will incorporate these elements, which clearly are not in the report, but for all other details, we've been able to give who is the recipient of what in our report. And, pardon? No, I am saying this element is not there, but we'll incorporate it.
So
that is why
an opportunity to update
and it will be tomorrow. We'll bring an update.
Mr. Chairman, sir. Looking at the presentation of the Accountant General today, vis-a-vis the request of this committee before him, that we should give us adequate record of recovered, expended, and with the notion of in the notion of the presentation I made to him, a record emanating from his office with 5 million euro not being included, I'd like to move that the Accountant General is concealing information before this committee and therefore cause him to appear before the whole House of the House of Representatives of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So move, Mr. Chairman.
Honorable. I need to appeal to us.
Mr. Chairman,
we stated it
Mr. Chairman,
that first we're trying to solve problems. You know, sometimes in a bid to solve a problem, you don't escalate what can be solved. I believe you will just
Honorable.
error. Can you let me land?
Honestly,
Can you please let me land?
Okay.
We'll give him another opportunity to look at the record, straighten the record. Maybe at the time he was writing the initial report, he didn't expect that would be this detailed. Sometimes accountants give background, they give a little, they don't go into the nitty-gritty. We have given him another opportunity.
Mr. Chairman,
to
if
go
you
into
so
the
please with my colleagues, you and my colleagues, I will see,
yeah,
I will
please,
draw
please,
it.
Please, let's
I will step it down.
Your motion.
Let me step it down.
Thank you.
Okay, I will step it down. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, for the period of 2017 to 2020, is there a possibility that you could miss that you could have omitted something from this schedule?
To the best of my knowledge, we have not omitted anything.
Okay, now let me read this. On August 1st, 2017, you made a payment of 6.119 million to the office of NSA. It's not reflected here.
Please, can I just see both?
Please, I want you to look at it. No, I give it to him. It's already highlighted. Please show him this. This is a statement of account.
It's the contract. Money came in the paycheck, the register. It's this.
The same figure of 6.119 debited on 1st August 2017 was okay.
Yes, sir.
My attention is drawn to the fact by the relevant operators of the account that this payment to ONSA Falcon Eye project was made in August 2017, and Honorable Chair, the same payment was reversed and the payment was made in August. yes, August 2017 is here as recorded, but reversed in June, precisely June 16th, 2018. So we have not, reported it as a payment because there is reversal.
Sorry. I need to understand this. A payment was made in August 2017 and reversed in June
2018.
June 2018. That's almost a year.
Yes.
For reversal.
Yes.
Where was the funds within this period before it was reversed? Reversal means that it was returned by the bank.
Yes.
It takes a year to reverse.
Well, for whatever reason, there is reversal.
Anyway, okay. Now, please hold on a bit. It's not reflected there. Agreed. It was reversed.
And
I
it is
still insisted the same amount. 22nd July 2019. The same, 6,520 million was paid for the same project and still not reflected in your account.
Not reflected?
Same. That's why I said 22nd July 2019.
It is here. Yes, it's in the submission.
Okay, Mr. Chairman.
The first one was reversed.
What is?
What number is it on the submission?
It is on this, this paper I collected, Chair, from you. The second payment was on 3rd July 2019. Here it is. Item 1,
Mr. Chairman.
3, 4, 5.
So, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, Mr. Chairman,
CBN, federal government accounts. Is it normal that a payment was reversed 5 months after? Is that how? Where was the money for that period?
The money was in TSA account of ONSA, not in commercial bank. No government agency operates commercial bank account.
So ONSA returned it to you?
Return it.
Okay, because they don't have further need for it.
Because for whatever reason, administrative, we don't know whether there was an issue, but it was returned that it was not the right time to pay the contractor or so. So it was returned and we took it back and it's reflected.
Okay, thank you.
Written assessment on status of all recovered loots. So where do you want me to read, please, sir?
No, the basic thing, what was the conclusion of the letter?
The letter?
You can read out the entire letter, it's not
I'm
confidential.
directed to. The letter is simply saying that recovery funds with the Central Bank of Nigeria.
No.
Unless I'm reading.
Let me read it for you. I think let's not confuse it. The NSA, they do not have a recovery account, and the NSA is unaware of the recovery account. Because the NSA says they don't know.
No, speak. Use the mic to speak.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chair, Honorable members. The NSA account, actually there used to be an EFCC team in the NSA's office, and recoveries related to.
I think you need to be on note before you can speak.
So was approved that all the recovery accounts should be consolidated under the Office of the Accountant General. There was a team in the NSA office. I think it's an EFCC dedicated team. So I think that account was specifically opened for recoveries emanating from the ONSA office as at that time. But we may need to check at the primary record because we have all the documents, we have all the submissions made by all these agencies when those recovery designated accounts were put in place.
I think there's going to be a lot of clarification now. EFCC officers attached to NSA office keeping a separate recovery account. No, I mean, if you're working for EFCC, no matter where you are you allowed to operate an account where you're different from the EFCC account?
It's a dedicated account, sir. We may need to check the records and then we can give you the background, what led to that, the approval to open the account.
Where's the payment mandate?
Sorry, sir. I think In a system where you are in charge of all the treasuries, whether ministry, agencies, and all the like, and there's every likelihood that in some occasions, you usually send memos, usually send memo across to all of them for one information or the other. Has there been any time you've extended any memo directing either EFCC or NSA that they should bring forth all monies they received in line with this investigative?
Yes, there has been a lot of communication between the Office of Accountant General of the Federation and the investigative agencies with regards to recoveries of funds. And more importantly, there was a specific directive by the federal government that we should harmonize so that every agency should not be keeping records and accounts on their own. And that was the time when Treasury took full control. Hitherto, they kept the account until they got final forfeiture. So, with that, we don't have visibility of what was happening before consolidation anyway. And now, we under the directive of government, we had to come, as a Treasury to take control, to take over, so that even if the interim forfeiture is visible to us, is maintained by us, is kept by the Treasury. And so there are a lot of correspondences to that effect between our office and the investigative agencies.
Okay, within the time, maybe in the last 1 year, when you send the last correspondence to that effect, that they should report all, no matter how infinitesimal, the information concerning this recovery. Have any of them within that time declined or refused to?
In fact, the investigative agencies, all these agencies, EFCC, ICPC, ONSA, and so on, including police, including whoever, are under obligation, and they know.
No, I don't mean obligation. I say since that time,
yes,
till now. Any of them?
Well, I'm not.
They are up to date. That's what I'm saying,
right?
I'm
not aware of any situation where any of them failed to give us information. Sometimes they wait because of the legal issues around the matter till it is concluded to a certain point. So, other than that,
what is the window? You say for some certain point. What's the window you usually give them to before making the return?
Unless they come to us, I wouldn't even know that they are handling this or that, except where I hear over the news that EFCC is making recovery. And that
there is no established timeline which you have given to them that if you are making any recovery, once this money comes into your hand, you must make that returns to the Accountant General or the details within 3 months or 1 month or something.
No, it's not open-ended arrangement. It's not even about 1 month or 3 months or whatever. They know.
No, not knowing. You see, communication in that manner is supposed to be, you must put pen on pad, it must be very formal.
No, Honorable, yes. We are all guided by government directive. Once there is a firm, single government directive that this be done, so everyone must be guided.
It's not on that. Sorry, sir.
The right thing.
It's not. Sorry, sir.
Yes.
It's not your responsibility. It's the responsibility of your office. If it's between you and a brother or a friend, that's a different thing. But in a situation your office is trying to have a correspondence with another office, it must be very formal, written.
We have been having correspondences for them to make available information on final forfeiture and the amounts.
And all of them are up to date?
Yes, as far as we know.
What's the window between the time they should get the recovery and the time they should make the necessary returns? What's the window?
Well,
what's the timeline?
In all honesty, there is no official timeline given.
It's an open-ended thing.
I wouldn't want to commit myself or commit them to a window.
So it's an open-ended thing. You can bring it anytime, even though it's 1 year or 2 years or 6 months or whatever.
No. It cannot be that.
So what is it like?
Well, a reasonable period of time.
Sorry, sir?
A reasonable period.
But that's what I'm saying.
Well, it's not defined.
It's not defined. When it's not defined, it's an open-ended thing.
It cannot be open-ended.
So any person can keep any money till any time, and now it's allowed.
You see, what is reasonable in the sense of an accountant?
Yes.
In this context,
yes,
cannot be more than a month.
More than a month?
Yes.
Okay.
In this context.
Please, Secretary, I would like you to take notice of that. He said that it's within 1 month that every correspondence and every money must be returned once it is collected. 1 month, not less than 1 month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Accountant General, government agencies from the recovery account give out loans to government agencies.
I know there are instances, I may not be specific. I know there are instances where, due to our revenue challenges and non-availability of funds in specific accounts, under some critical conditions, I know we do borrowings. And when we borrow, we state clearly it is borrowing. It's normal, and even though I cannot tell you specifics because I don't have the exact figure to tell you.
Again, do you borrow, let me just say, sometimes, it's not in the budget, they have critical needs, you borrow on budgetary borrowing. Extra budgetary borrowing. Do you do extra budgetary borrowing?
I am not aware of any extra budgetary borrowing. I am not aware of extra budgetary borrowing out not within the appropriation. I'm not aware. I am not really aware. Okay. Yes, I've seen this, and
the question was if the loan was refunded.
I have not even seen where this stands to be a borrowing, sir. I have been struggling. I've been struggling to see. Okay.
This is from the Office of Accountant General. Okay?
These are two different amounts. The first one is $20 million. The second one is $23 million. And so they are two different amounts, sir.
Take this.
That's the first one given to me.
Anyway, okay, even if, you said this the $23 million
yes, sir,
is stated as borrowing.
It is.
I asked you, the borrowed fund, was it refunded?
I know at different times we made representation to the then Honorable Minister of Finance to the effect that some of these borrowings need to be provided for in the budget and paid for. And as far as I know, this in particular, or that 23 in particular, which is tagged as borrowing, I cannot conclude here that it has been paid, because I need to go down the records to determine exactly if it is paid or not. But I know if it is tagged as borrowing, it should be paid.
Okay, I think there's still another set of borrowing which will, from the recovery account, are not being refunded. Unless you're able to prove to us that they were refunded, we'll consider that to mean that payments have been made illegally. So what I'm ruling now is to give you till Thursday to give us evidence that those funds were refunded. Thank you. So ruled. And that's why I've ruled that you present this paper. We will not have that session in public because there are a lot of things we need to know. If our fund is being used in our own interest without our knowledge, we want to know. That's why I use the word in our own interest without our knowledge, without appropriation. We need to understand how it's being used so that accountability even if you're using it our own interest, we should at least be accountable. We should give account of that fund that's being used in our own interest. Even if we don't give it publicly, we should give it privately, so that at least public fund is not wasted. So I need for you to look at it. There's so many others like that that I have not given to you, but if you look at your record, you will see them. The same way you're referring to these, all those borrowings in line with that, to all the vital, critical ministry, the critical agencies that you borrowed them to. Please, we need to get evidence that they were refunded. If they were not refunded, we are aware that some of those funds for which you borrowed funds received budgetary allocation for the same project. So we need to clarify that, and then, at least when we meet, you agree for Thursday, and so that's why we decided that we're going to hold a private session on Thursday with him giving us breakdown. If they've not been refunded, we've got to find a way to ensure that we reconcile properly. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, for the benefit of the press.
Mr. Chairman, a lot. Please, Mr. Cameraman or whatever, please shift a little. Because I just want to just put something straight. I heard when they mentioned that 6.1 billion was sent to an account. They said that's an operational account by EFCC. And NSA says it's not aware of the account. Yes. Yes.
No.
We want to, so that by the time you're feeding us now and later, we'll be on the right path to find out the legality of such funds. I don't know whether you got it right.
Well,
are you with me?
There could be some mix-up. Are we talking of recovery account, or what specific?
But you have mentioned 6.1 today that was sent to an account. You said it's operational by EFCC? Yes, sir.
I think there's a bit of confusion, but it's all part of the document.
No, so that by the time it's going to
what I'm explaining to you now is that we mentioned Office of NSA. In respect of this you mentioned and some of the other issues that we said you should bring on Thursday, I think we'll deal with it when it comes on Thursday. Thank you. My dear brothers and sisters, my honorable colleagues, trust you, if I knew you were fasting, maybe I would have taken you before
I speak better when I'm fasting.
Oh, okay. So maybe when you're coming on Thursday, please continue to fast. I appreciate you. One of the things you will understand from our proceedings is that we mean well. We've been given a mandate that's in the interest of our nation. Much as we want to do it, we want to do it in such a way that safeguards the security of the nation as well. We want to protect our country. We want to ensure that funds, public funds, there's transparency in the utilization of public funds. There's transparency in the management of recovered assets. We're looking at all that. So we'll thank you for your cooperation. We'll thank you for the facts you've given. There are a lot of things that we've ruled that you should produce.
Hereby move for an adjournment of this session till tomorrow, 27th at 10 a.m. I so move.
Mr. Chairman.